Well, fuck me, this is 1,000 times better than it needed to be.
Is this what recreational drugs feel like?
Landing in August as a theatrical-only release with somehow both a big but not as big as you'd expect marketing push, both apparently owed to being one of the last wave of films technically produced at 20th Century Fox before being picked up for release in their Disney acquisition, Free Guy arrives pitched as something like The Truman Show meets Wreck-It Ralph, a solid enough elevator pitch for a winning family action comedy that doesn't quite capture what Ryan Reynolds and director Sean Levy have smuggled into theaters in the guise of a fun weekend distraction. A clever, highly polished surprise that's the big-hearted, feel-good summer blockbuster that audiences have been begging for all year. Holding onto his by now trademark earnest wise guy persona, but with the self-awareness inverted for comic extreme and plot reasons, the high-concept premise is that Reynolds' Guy is an NPC or non-player character in a Grand Theft Auto but also Fortnite shoot-'em-up game called Free City, meaning that he's one of the static background video game characters going through a limited loop of programmed actions day by day who exist to be interacted with, often violently but always dismissively, by the powered-up heroes, aka avatar characters of real-world humans, playing Free City, except of course Guy and the other NPCs aren't aware that their world is a game or that their existence has limitations, because they can't be, they're just code, or at least they're meant to be, but for reasons that are the story of the film. And actually a pretty decent what's going on here mystery, both in concept and execution. Guy has recently started to become very gradually more aware of himself and his surroundings than he's supposed to be, and has started to awkwardly test the boundaries he wasn't previously aware existed. These personality changes seemingly triggered by his inexplicable draw toward random appearances by Jodie Comer's Molotov Girl, a highly skilled female player character whose real world, just player, I guess, is an indie game developer with a bigger agenda than racking up points during her time in Free City. Through mutual misunderstanding as to one another's actual nature, Guy resolves to impress Molotov by literally rising to her level, but since he can't imagine hurting anyone, he starts leveling up his in-game stats by thwarting the more violent players' attacks on the other NPCs, taking their weapons and items, and effectively playing an anti-hero game as a good guy, in the process becoming a global streaming phenomenon as the gaming community assumes he's some mysterious player and not, that the game is actually playing back at them, all of which draws the attention and subsequent ire of the villain of our piece, Taika Waititi, as the perfectly observed, very well cast, odiously brotastic boss of the AAA game studio that runs Free City and whose top secret plans for the game's impending sequel launch are going to mean bad news for his customers, but catastrophic news for the NPCs of the game itself if they were sentient beings, which, now seems one of them might be.
Who is this guy?
This character in the video game Free City has been turning heads by being the good guy.
I'm sorry! This loser is ruining the game, man! Terminate him.
Is that a Glock in your pocket?
No,
What?
it's 2 Glocks.
And on premise alone, what's fun about this is that that's mostly what they've popped into the advertising as here's what the movie's about, and as good a setup as any for an action comedy where Reynolds can whip out his brand of funny while bouncing between video game gags and Comer can rock an over-the-top riff on an icy action babe routine that's one part parody and one part sincere self-promotion to be the second coming of Kate Beckinsale. Like, between the two of them having solid chemistry, the clear misunderstanding, clarity, now what resolution arc involved in the action, there's already plenty of movie for this movie. But instead, it's really only about half of that, and somehow, without feeling overstuffed, confusing, or up its own ass or too clever by half, Free Guy decides to take the step that other personified human-like artificial things as allegory for the human condition metaphor stories like Wreck-It Ralph or Toy Story always, with reason in those cases, avoid into the next level of depth for actual science fiction, having not only by what process did Guy's code become self-aware, become a key piece of both storylines, but also jumping feet first, albeit still in a generalized, think about it on the ride home pro-social way, since this is a PG-13 comedy, mostly shooting for a family audience, into grappling with, would this not technically qualify as like the discovery of artificial intelligence, and wouldn't that be a huge deal in the world if it happened? And yeah, without wanting to give more of the fun away, there's a whole other side of Free Guy's narrative all about the business politics of the real gaming industry and gaming culture, with a bunch of real YouTube and Twitch streamers doing cameos that shockingly not only avoids pandering or talking down to that audience, but really shows off a genuine affection for and understanding of the whole milieu and how it might react to all of this stuff actually happening. I mean, I'm not entirely confident that in reality an unnamed viral star going god mode Robin Hood on behalf of NPCs in GTA Online would inspire an actual be a better person just because movement among the global community in real life, but this made me kind of want to buy it.
I know this world is just a game, but this place, these people, that's all I have. What if we can save it? We can change our world, but we have to fight together. I don't even know what's happening right now, but I love it! Woo!
And that's actually kind of the sneaky thing here. If Free Guy is a hit, and I think it has the potential to be, who knows anymore with the pandemic, but this is exactly the style and quality of movie that people like Jim Carrey and Mike Myers were using to print their own currency back in the 90s and early 2000s, a lot of the credit is going to go to Reynolds' star power, Comer's star-making turn, and a bunch of really killer gaming and pop culture gags, especially in a big final battle scene that people are probably going to go nuts for. But what had me genuinely elevated walking out of this one was how uncynically, sincerely, and successfully positive it was. Especially recently, it feels like every other big event movie wants to shoot for a return to the let's all come together and stand up for ourselves collective heroism moments, and that kind of thing is usually so well-intentioned you want to root for it, even when it doesn't totally land. But the clear and, to be sure, not at all veiled or subtle moral symbolism here about being what you want, stepping outside your prescribed role, but not stepping on anyone else to do it, what it means to come to life, is all so well observed and presented with so much we really mean this conviction that I was honestly surprised how much of a damn I gave about how it was going to work out. You really end up caring about what's going to happen to the game world and the situation in reality, which is about the best review you can give to storytelling when people start to care whether or not people in a video game live or die is literally the story. I honestly can't say I think Sean Levy has made a better movie than this. He's basically grown up behind the camera, for better or for worse, and made movies that have been good and not as good, but this is a real home run and proof positive that Reynolds is capable of much more than Deadpool. Free Guy is funny, heartfelt, exciting, endearing, and the best love letter from Hollywood to video games since The Last Starfighter. 9 out of 10, can't wait to see this one again.